And I have to say that the service that the student group has put together, I really love it. I think it really is beautiful and remarkable, and therefore does not need a sermon. Yeah. But I have on one of my better preaching flannels, and so I need to go ahead and proceed. And the text, I ended the text intentionally there, not because I didn't want to go further, but because I think there's really good sermons to be had as the text continues. But one of the things I want to say about this reading and the decision this translator made, Dr. Ted Hebert, who taught at McCormick forever, who did this Common English Bible translation, one of the decisions that the translator made was to maintain the gender agnostic language of what is happening in this text. And you'll have a number of individuals who are continually writing in the scholarship right now that what happens later in the text becomes the movement of a human into two parts, male and female. But male and human may be more accurate. Yeah. But that to me is a sermon I still want to preach. But I had to not go for that sermon today. But I want to point to the text, and the decisions that the translator made was to maintain that. And probably, I think today, in the past, talking with Dr. Hebert, would probably have made the decision to make all the pronouns they. But this text does that. This text does that because in the Hebrew, there is dualities placed in conversation in a way to where you know it's not either or, but it's both and. Y'all remember that for the next time we have to preach in this text because it's important. But I want to talk a little bit more about what's happening in the text and why I keep coming back to this text over and over and over again. I have to say, Ted Hebert reclaimed creation for me in the translation of the text and the decisions that he as a translator made to engage the idea of fertile soil as the foundation of what it means to be human. And from that fertile soil, we have the spaces we're so familiar with where God breathes life into that soil. Now, in other interpretations of translations of this, God's just breathing into dirt. But what does it mean for the breath of God to enter life, to create a different life? Because the soil is alive. Everything around us is alive. When we stand on the ground, on the fertile soil, we are standing in a place of consistent and constant resurrection. That what is happening under our feet is consistently plant material, other animal species, waste is all being renewed in that space through the movement of microbes, fungi, water, roots, all the things together in that rhizome layer. So we're standing in a place of consistent and constant resurrection when we stand in the soil. But this text begins in a way that is a moment of deep intimacy between the Creator and the created. Think about what it means to be so close that the breath is breathed into you. That the movement is there and what it means to respire together. Said in other places, what it means to conspire together, to share breath in such a way to where the Creator and the created are moving together into a new created space where the human begins to live out the core of human vocation, which in this text is to work the fertile land and to bring the fertile land into full life in all the ways. This co-breathing, this conspiring together for the land to be at its deepest and most life-giving and life-receiving in a way that we can know ourselves. That so many words come out of the idea of what soil is, humus to humility, all the different ways that we can think about this. But we can know ourselves as we know ourselves engaged in full commitment to the health and life of our soil and of our place. I want that one little reading from Tom Robbins, that alienation is the disease of the unsoiled. That one really took me there in a very intense way. 3 or 4 articles coming across my desk in the last 48 hours about the increase of alienation and loneliness and the desire of people to kind of live in a space that is fully and totally their own. We can blame COVID, we can blame the apps, we can blame everything, but for the most part, I am an individual who pretty much likes my own company a lot. And so the ability to be in a space where I have the illusion of connection, but also the wonderfulness of believing my own thoughts can be unchallenged. It's not necessarily a healthy place for me, but to be soiled, like to be in this place, I think about all the ways that people can connect across soil. There's very few places I've had more fun than on a row weeding with just the goofy conversations that can happen with people who are on the farm. And the way that we can be in other ways of being together in relationality as we care for the very soil and place that we find ourselves embedded in and enmeshed in. But the breath into soil, the breath into possibility, the idea of recreating in such a way all of the life that God put into place through this creation story. That every time that we enact the work of planting a seed, of harvesting, of weeding, that we are taking a full role in the text that was just read. We're living into the human vocation. So, Wendell Berry has a little quote in here, but we also have had at times Rattan Lal on our campus to go for a speech where Dr. Lal says the rhizosphere, the place where root and soil meet and all the bacteria and fungi meet, is the only place where death is consistently turned into life. Berry says the same thing. I want to have a sense that when you're walking on this campus, when you're in the fields, when you're next to the trees, when you're walking up in the food forest, when you're going up in the northern fields and making sure that a number of ticks make it home with you, 'cause that's what you're going to harvest up there. But in all of these spaces, I would like for one thing for you to have in mind, is that you're in the midst of practicing resurrection every moment. I don't think it's accidental. Well, maybe it is accidental, but I don't think we ought to treat it as an accident that Earth Day, Earth Week happens during the season of Easter. Because what is happening in the promotion and possibilities of Earth Day, besides all of the products you can now buy, is the understanding of how will we take care of the place that offered us the very life we live. How will we practice resurrection every day? So rather than sending you on a charge to go and honor the earth and take care of the earth and do all those things, I just want you to take care of your home. I want you to take care of the very stuff you are made of. I want you to take care of the life that you exist in relationship to, even without remembering, but cannot forget us who need it to exist. In this text, we see the God that is described to us in our scriptures chose to create the human in relationship out of the very soil that we all stand upon. It should shift a little bit of perspective on what dirt is. Should hope for the possibility of life. Should hope for the possibility that with every step and every breath, we can practice resurrection in every space. Because the soil around us is doing that. Because the food that we had, so many of us, I'm telling you all, that plate today, whew, whew. It's a little embarrassing that if every time you take a forkful you moan at the table. It's a little bit embarrassing. I've been known to do it. Today was one of those days where I was doing it internally. But what we are partaking of in that space with this idea that all of the soil is practicing resurrection is communion. The bread and the wine that we partake of is in memory of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, but also honoring the resurrection that is happening around us at all times. The meal that we ate up there was a practice of communion with the elements brought to us through the farm, through other farmers, and through the skills of our chef, and through the ability to sit at table together and have these conversations. That is a practice of communion. And so I think that when you reach the end of your sermon notes and realize you did not write a conclusion, but that's the conclusion you want. I cannot imagine being able to teach and think and research and learn in a space that doesn't have consistent reminders of that we are a people that live in a resurrected context. I can't imagine. But I also have a difficult time imagining any other space that I've ever been in having it being a consistent and constant reminder. And that's where we are. Every time that Laura Ann and others renew the soil, we are renewing the life of ourselves, of our communities, and of this space, and bringing into existence the very food that will sustain us. So all I ask y'all to do as a charge for this sermon is to be mindful. Is to be aware. Is to, when you pause to pray for your meal or to be in a meditative moment or just to hold the fork in front of you and take a deeper sensation of what you're getting ready to eat, or as one of our speakers says, you engage the life of the soil through wine or other forms, to take that short term of memory and remember the resurrection. Your resurrection. You're doing all that. Laura Ann and I had a conversation earlier in the week. Are we still on that conversation?
Not sure which one you're referring to.
About a practice you brought to the IPEJI folks?
Oh, yes. I can set that up. I have not.
Okay. We had a group of folks here on campus that were the prophetic preaching group out of a grant from Union. And I'm not always the most full participant in some of the things that we do with the farm. There are times I like to stand at the side and watch other people dance or sing or, anything that requires moving of the hips. I'm just not bred for that. It's Dutch, Irish, English. They just know those people move their hips. And so the idea that there's any kind of movement is not. But Laura Ann brought to this group a practice that I found incredibly profound and really important for my own kind of engaging of this. She could tell the story better and maybe will in a different time, but not today. But what we did was we had holes that we dug. And Lorianne told the story of with her daughter sometimes getting so angry or frustrated, she said, go out and tell the dirt. Go out and tell the soil. Tell the earth where your anger lies, your frustration lies. Am I in the space here? Yeah. Tell that to that earth. So we split up into groups, had different stations where folks actually got on their hands and knees and said, yelled, and one of the students who I was in a group with, just overwhelming expressions of pain. Just an unburdening that was really powerful. I'm not going to tell you exactly what I was doing, except for it was real to me to have conversation with my ancestors in that space as I spoke into the place where my ancestors are interred. And to have that ability to express, for me, it was an expression of gratitude. And what it meant to be in that space with ancestors who have encircled me at different times, and I felt their presence at different times, and I know them to be in this space in a very real way, to be in that, and all of a sudden I found myself thanking them and in the midst of that. So I think what we want to offer is an opportunity for us to have just another station of spiritual practice where you can go and in the most basic way, the way the joke will probably be told, you can go and yell in a hole. But you can also go and just have a moment of gratitude, of reverence, of care, where you embrace the very stuff this narrative, this story says we are made of. And that's what I want to invite you to do in this concluding sermon. In this conclusion of this sermon. The concluding sermon sounds like something's happening that is not happening that I know of. If there's a rapture, I'll be here. Yeah, I'll be around. It's no problem. I'm not part of that group. But I want to invite you to just have a moment of communion with the very stuff this narrative says we are made of. Peace be upon you. Thank you.